with the area of reflection, um, again, I want to thank Rodney Robinson for all of his help in coordinating things with the University of Delaware, and Anna Wick at the University of Delaware. She's the one who led the class, and she was immensely helpful, and was great to work with. And then also I do want to thank Gloria and Annie and Verdi for all of their time and effort spent with prepping for the class and speaking with the students. And we just finished up, or we're in the process of finishing up, the internship with Olivia Boone, who was one of the students in the class. She interned, it's technically an internship, I guess, with us after graduation. She is now at grad school at Penn State. And so she has some renderings, and I'm gonna show you this here. And so this is one of her renderings of the area of reflection. And it started off sort of as a circle, and it sort of evolved into two circles. And so just to kind of give you an idea, the mansion and the log dwelling are off this way. The new visitor center would be up this way. The new pathway, that upper loop, is around here. And so these are going to be like permeable paths again. This is going to be permeable pavement or permeable rubber inside. So again, we're not causing any water issues. These are berms to disguise the concrete from the outside. So the view shed from the mansion and the log dwelling, if you were to look over to the side, you're going to see trees and you're going to see native plants. And one of the things we did is we've had a preliminary meeting with Chief Coker of the Lenape tribe of Delaware. And one of the things he suggested, we were already planning on trying to use native plants, but he said that, you know, the tribe has plants that have significant meaning to them for spiritual purposes. And so we're going to be speaking more with the Lenape about what kind of plantings have specific meanings to them and utilizing those plantings. And they would all, again, be native plantings. And then we would also be able to add that into our interpretation education. And we're going to be speaking to the public about what is actually going to go on these walls. We have some ideas. Some of the thoughts are the names of those who had been enslaved at the site that are known. There was also some thought about maybe some Native American artwork that could be inscribed into them or something like that. So we're going to continue speaking with the Lenape tribe, and we'll probably touch base with the Nanacoke as well. But then they're also federally recognized tribes, so we'll be speaking with them, even though they're not geographically located here in Delaware anymore. And so we do want to make sure that we're incorporating their feedback, and we're going to be going out to the public. So the final product probably isn't going to look exactly like this. There are going to be some things that are slightly tweaked, but we knew that going into it, that this was going to be sort of the design development, but then it wasn't going to be the final construction documents, because there were going to be certain things that there was just no way for Olivia to be able to nail down in a summer. And we didn't want to try to stress her out too much and put all of that on her. That just wouldn't have been fair. So I'm gonna end this share, and I'm gonna show you a different image that might help. So you can see better how it is. This here. Can you see this one?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the plan. This gives you a better sense of where it is. So that wooded area, and then so you see the pond here. This is the wooded area that we call the Glen. You have the log dwelling, you have the mansion, you have the garden, the formal garden here. So it's kind of tucked into the corner. From the mansion, there's already some trees and things in the way. So it's already sort of an obscured view shed if you were to stand out in front of the mansion and look over this way. Once we put those berms up and we plant some trees, you wouldn't be able to see it at all. So it would not interfere with the historic view shed. We also want to make sure that's true from the log dwelling, which does have more of a line of sight to it. But the idea is, if you were to step outside the log dwelling and look over in the direction of the area of reflection, you would just see plantings and greenery, and if the plants have other colors, you would see that as well. You wouldn't see the concrete walls. Those would be completely invisible from the historic core. So we would not be interfering with that historic view shed. So does anybody have any questions about this?
Yes. Just was the original thought that that area of reflection would be closer to where the graves are?
No, we actually had the students, one of the parts of their project of all of the students that were part of this class was to determine where they thought it should go. We had some ideas about that. And one student actually did come up with an idea that was right down, actually two students came up with ideas that were right down by the burial ground. One of those ideas, we did like a lot of aspects of it. And we started to kind of go with two areas of reflection. We are sort of keeping that other one, I don't want to say on the back burner, but we're keeping it in mind with the intent that we ultimately want to do something down by the burial ground. And we did really like the basis of this idea. And I'll say if Gloria wants to jump in and talk about that at all as well, I certainly welcome that. With that one, it needed a little bit more development. And so we decided to kind of shift the focus more to this one for a couple of reasons. One, we realized we needed a lot more community input, especially from the descendant population, the descendant community of those buried in that burial ground. And so we didn't really want to do a lot of changes or plan for a lot of changes down there until we really started having those conversations with the descendant community. And that one is also a decent walk from everything else that we have. And we didn't want people to feel if you want to utilize the area of reflection, you have to go walk half a mile first. If somebody, feels they need to utilize the area of reflection, we wanted it to be close enough to be able to easily get to it, but not so close that it interrupted the historic view shed or impacted any of the historic structures. And so we felt this kind of met that pretty well. It's close to where the new visitor center is going to be. It's close to the historic core, but we're able to disguise it from the historic view shed. So there's a very good chance there will be something similar, not similar to this, but similar kind of in the idea of it, or in the scope of it, I should say, eventually down by the burial ground.
Okay, so I have a question on this, the berm that you're talking about regarding the concrete berm, and given an opportunity for a lot of different quotes or whatever, but I would hope that we could come up with something significant that John Dickinson has written about, or to really get, I mean, my feeling is John Dickinson is really not given the opportunity that we really should provide for him. And I think this would be a great opportunity for his quotes to be kind of the primary message in this circle, and of course other messages, but somehow I think we have to use this for some of the things that John Dickinson stood for.
That's not really the intent of this space. There are going to be other spaces that are more appropriate for Dickinson's quotes. There's certainly going to be in the new exhibit in the visitor center. The visitor center is going to be a better space for that. The intent of this is to really focus on those who were burdened either by being removed from the property or by being enslaved at the property.
Okay, so then I guess the question is, why isn't that near the graveyard? Why is that up here? I mean, I know what you just said, the distance, but otherwise, wouldn't it be better if it was located closer to the burial ground?
Well, again, that would make it so that it's not really accessible to a lot of people. If people aren't comfortable walking that half mile, or if it's bad weather, people wouldn't be able to utilize it. So we did want to make sure it was in a space that people could easily get to. And again, this is actually where we're finding a lot of Native American artifacts, and so there's some value in having the proximity to that, since it's going to be telling part of that story as well.
Okay.
Dan, I have a question.
Sure.
Where are the circles located in connection with the highway? My orientation is off.
Sure. So north is towards the top of this page that you see. So the highway would be over here to this side. So we have the Spring Branch, and then we have that agricultural field, and then the highway would be sort of over here. Can you see my cursor?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So the highway would be over here.
Okay. Now, is there any possibility that noise from the highway would be a problem in the reflection area?
That's a great question. That was something the students really looked at. They were looking at noise and different sounds, and the planes. And when a C5 goes overhead, it doesn't matter where you are. So we kind of said, don't worry too much about that one, because you can't do anything about that. It is a little bit of a concern. It is something that that was considered. And that was part of the reason why anything on this side of the Spring Branch was basically dismissed, because the student said it's just going to be too loud. It's going to be too distracting. Over here, we do have all these trees that help break up that sound a little bit. And the intent is, once you're inside the circles, because they have the berms, because they have the walls, you're still, I'm not going to say that you won't be able to hear Route 1 at all. Route 1's very loud. It's kind of omnipresent, that noise, but it'll be a lot more muted. And the intent is that it would be more just sort of background white noise, as opposed to very definitively, oh, that's Route 1.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Dan, could I just interject here?
Absolutely.
The location of that, the circles that Olivia selected, was also because from that perspective, you get a very distant view of where the burial site was. It is oriented, believe it or not, towards that direction. Especially the circle on the left opens up and looks down in that specific direction. So it gives you the opportunity to do something of an interpretive nature there that focuses the visitor toward the burial site. The other thing is putting the walls up and then filling behind them with soil helps create about the best sound barrier you can, except whatever's going to maybe roll over the top of the space that comes from the highway. The other thing that is not, I don't think it's in the plan, but it's often done, if you can introduce a water element somehow and create white noise, that would do a great deal to drown out noise from the highway. It would give you this constant soothing white noise. So, the design is still very much in its conceptual stage, I think.
Yeah, so Rodney, thank you for adding that in. I neglected to mention that. So the opening that you see in the wall right here is to give that view directly down towards the burial ground. So thank you for that. And several of the students also proposed having some sort of white noise generator, whether it was a water feature or some sort of hidden speakers. And that's potentially something we can add in as well to help with that. Any other questions?
This is Casey. Just out of curiosity, is there going to be?
I can't hear you.
Is there going to be any sort of covered area for when there's inclement weather?
That was also something that was looked at by several of the students, and the intent is that it's going to be more open. And part of the reason for that is generally inclement weather keeps the visitation way down, especially out on the paths and everything else. And so the added expense, which may have pushed this project to be something that wouldn't be feasible, of trying to do a sealed cover, probably wasn't worth it, is where we were at. Doesn't mean it couldn't be something that's added eventually, but as of now, we didn't feel it was a necessity, just because the visitation ends up dropping when we have really bad weather.
Okay, thanks.
I have a is the proposed visitor center, is that location set now?
Barring any surprises, it is fairly well set. Yes.
I just wonder why not stay over where the current visitor center is, just to reduce the disturbed area?
This actually was previously disturbed to a certain degree, and this land was purchased by the state as a buffer area. And so it was also purchased with the intent that if we were to build something else, it would probably go over here so that we wouldn't be disturbing anything else within the historic core. We want to make sure we're not impacting anything further here.
That's why, all right.
So the modern building could go here, and it would give us a new entrance so that we wouldn't have to try to widen the current road, which is basically a driveway with the alley, and we don't want to impact those trees any, so that it gives us a lot more flexibility.
Gotcha. What happens to the current visitor center?
We are going to retain it, and it is still going to be utilized by staff. We're still determining exactly what it's going to be, but it might be some staff offices, some programming preparation space and storage space, and potentially, we could still use it as a meeting room potentially. So we're not in the habit of getting rid of accessible buildings that have restrooms.
Gotcha.
And you can park your new golf cart there.
Exactly. So yeah, you're going to hear more about that from Gloria. So I won't steal her thunder.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dan. Any other questions for Dan?
Thank you, Dan.
Gloria? And welcome, Elizabeth.
So we are starting this week with burial ground visitations. They're starting September 17th, and we're going to run through till November 20th. We're going to be doing them every Tuesday and Friday and select Saturdays. And there'll be 1.5 hour tours starting at 11 and 2 p.m. We'll start with an orientation in the visitor center. Then we'll go to the log dwelling to show everyone how people experience their lives. And then we're going to go outside of the log dwelling, give everyone an introduction of how we discovered the burial grounds. And then we're going to take a walk down to the burial grounds. We're going to have a moment of silence. Then we're going to come back, and then we're going to have allow people to talk their feelings out. We're going to ask them questions like asking their opinion on where we should go with our next steps. This is one way that we're going to be engaging with the community, and they're going to be able to give us some answers, or at least if they're interested, we can create a new grouping of people who will be able to share their thoughts and also be advocates for the John Dickinson Plantation. So we're going to be starting at this Friday, and Dr. Cammie Fletcher, who her background is in death and African burial practices and plantations. She's our advisor, and she's going to be joining some of the visitations. So on some occasions, she will be on site to help with those visitations. Does anyone have any questions about the burial ground visitations? I know, Eunice, you've already signed up. We also did something in the last month, and that is the Plantation Stories Project. So Annie's been working diligently, and I'm not just Annie, this is based on research that we have done for years. Staff, our advisors, our researchers, they've all worked together. And from this, we created the Plantation Stories Project, which names the enslaved and free African Americans that we know were associated with the John Dickinson Plantation. We use databases, or I should say, we use documents such as John Dickinson's 3 manumission documents. We use Mary Cadwallader Dickinson, John's mother's account book ledger, where she has lists and names of people who need shirts and breeches and stockings and jackets. We've used a list that John Dickinson had of enslaved people who were working at R. Johnson, which is Robert Johnson's, and he was one of the tenants of John Dickinson. So using all those names, we put them together in a database, and that is now available to the public to see. So it turned out to be about 127 names, but we're not done. It doesn't include everyone. So the next round, we're going to be looking at leases, and we're going to be looking at indentured servant contracts. So they'll be added. So as we do more and more research, then we're going to be adding to the database. So right now it's raw data. And as we get a little further along, we'll be hopefully having a separate website that will explain a little bit more and have a little bit more information and look a little prettier, more user-friendly. Does anyone have any questions about the plantation storage project? I do urge you to go and take a look.
I would just like to add, Gloria isn't going to congratulate herself on that, but she was a vital part of that. And the effort she and Annie and Verdi and one of our new inclusive history researchers, Sakina, put into it was immense. And that research that she mentioned that was years in the making, she had done a lot of that. Gloria had done a lot of that. So she's shaking her head no, but she was a big part of this being able to happen. So I want to make sure that is noted for the record, because she isn't going to say it herself.
And Gloria, where can we find that?
That is on, if you go to our website,
Okay,
then on the part of the history of the plantation, the link is right there.
all right.
The Cultural Affairs website.
Correct, yes. Not
I'm
the
gonna
Friends
put a link.
website, but you can add it to your to your website also.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Yeah.
And I have to, another plug for Gloria. I think that podcast, I have a link of that you gave, was really, really professional, excellent, clear. It was really perfect, I thought. And I think I would encourage everybody to look at that. And that link is right there in the slavery section of our website. I was very impressed with that, Gloria.
You know, I hate hearing myself talk, so I don't listen to it after that.
You were very good, very good.
I do have something to remind all the friends, and that is all the work that you're doing, like even now, we consider them volunteer hours. So we're asking that you make sure that you record these hours, especially if you're working together in your committees or you're at home and you're working time, like you're working on the website and reviewing it. Those are all considered volunteer hours. And if you could just keep track of them so that when it's time to report them, that we don't neglect the fact that you put in so much time and effort to help our site. HCA really appreciates having this friends group.
Sorry, Gloria, when is it that you need those? When is it that you need those hours?
We usually do it every month. That would be the easiest way to keep track of it, but I think it's every quarterly. And then she asked, I think Jennifer is now asking every, I don't know how many, but quarterly would be easier also. If you do it in smaller chunks, you won't have to do what I do, is go to my calendar and look back on every meeting we've ever had.
Okay, so will we get an email about that?
I can have her send an email to Ellen, and Ellen can send it out to everyone.
Okay, great, because I would not remember otherwise. So
yes,
okay.
because I know we have not called all of your volunteer hours, Linda.
Yeah, probably. I don't think I've ever sent any in. Sorry. Okay.
So in our efforts to make this site more accessible, we're in the process of getting 2 new vehicles. We did get our Kubota. It is a nice ride. It is air conditioned. It has lights. It has a horn, and it literally can go anywhere on this site. We used it all day yesterday at the burial ground when we were looking at all the locations that we had to stake in the ground for the mowers to come, and it tracked throughout the whole site. And so that was an added necessity. Now that we have the whole site and it's accessible, we can now get anywhere we need to reasonably and safely.
And what kind of vehicle is it, Gloria?
It's a Kubota. And Dan, do you have a picture of it? If I pull something up on my phone, on my computer, it will literally stop everything.
I don't think I have a good one. I have the manual right here that I can hold up close.
Okay, all right.
So it has a spreader and a blade, so we can actually use it. We'll be able to use it on the pathways.
Good.
Thank you.
The
Any other
golf,
questions for Gloria? Or Gloria,
one more
were you not finished?
no, I'm not finished yet. Just a couple more things. We also got 2 sheds to put everything in, the golf cart, and which will be a 6-passenger golf cart with a ramp for anyone with a wheelchair. So our purpose is to use that to get them around the site and eventually to get them to the burial ground, if anyone needs to be able to do that. We have 1 new staff member. Her name is Lauren Moser, and she just started within the last 2 months. So I wanted to introduce her to everyone. So the next time we are all getting together in person, you'll be able to meet our newest staff member. So as of Lauren's hiring, I now have 5 staff members, and casual, seasonal, part-time. And then we have Annie Finnemore, who is our full-time merit. And the only other thing that I want to bring up is that now that the Historical Society of Pennsylvania is somewhat open, I've been doing some research, so I have to do a little bit more research, but they do have in their list a ledger that is possibly from Samuel Dickinson. So I'm going to do some more research. I talked to Jane Calvert. She has not seen the ledger. I talked to our researchers. They have not seen the ledger. So I'm going to contact HSP to see if they have the ledger, to see if it is Samuel Dickinson's ledger. And if it is, I may want to come to the Friends to see if we can get a high resolution scan and if you would pay for it. So I will keep you informed if it is Samuel Dickinson, because we have very little, next to nothing personally from Samuel Dickinson to explain how the house was built, to explain what was going on here during his time. Most of our documents are about John Dickinson, but we do need to understand what came before John. Does anyone have any other questions? And just as the last final note, the mansion is now open for tours, and there are railings on the front stairs. For those of you who remember in the past.
Yes, we do.
So, I'm sure you do. And yes, we now have railings on all the stairs leading into the house.
Very good. Any other questions for Gloria or Dan? Okay, thank you for those reports. We will now move on to old business. The first item is landscape update. I have no update. I have no report. We kind of stopped doing everything last year once the burial site was found. We haven't done anything since then. Marketing initiative, John Sweeney.
The Delaware Historical Society is planning to go ahead with its History Day project or annual event. And if you'll recall, a couple of years ago, we voted to create a John Dickinson Prize for a student who writes the best report or does the best project on the life and legacy of John Dickinson. The 2020 contest ran into the beginning of COVID, and that was sort of thrown off. And in 2021, it was a very small, sort of fractured contest. But they're hoping they can pull everything together. And I gave a preliminary indication that we would be interested in sponsoring the award this year. We had authorized a $250 prize for the best project or paper on Dickinson that several of us, if we wish, can be the judge of this project. Whether this is going to be in person or it will be online, I don't know. We'll find out as we go along. Now, one of the problems is that in 2020, it was the first time they did it. The Historical Society has one person, Rebecca Fay, who does a great job, but she's one person, and she can't get the information out to a lot of people, to a lot of the schools on the matter in the way we would like to see. So I've approached the Delaware's Democracy Project, which is out of the University of Delaware. I don't know how well they are functioning now in terms of because of COVID and what's happening at the schools, but I am going to meet with a representative later this week to find out if we can go through them and directly contact every social studies teacher in the state with some information on a Dickinson Award, encouraging students to become and to enter and so forth. And with that, I would like to build on what Tom was talking about, is sort of taking a look at our website to be more student friendly. As Casey mentioned, some of the language that we use, it may be too esoteric for young students, and perhaps we can play with the website to come up with a little more basic background on the era and on the terminology that is used and so forth, so that if we encourage the students, or we're able to bring all this off, we can encourage the students to use the website as a resource. And I think that, if we can start getting more young people involved and more teachers involved, making it easier for the teachers, that will be a help for us. So if, with your permission, I'll go ahead and do that.
I think it sounds like a great idea. Is there anything, I mean, could we direct people to the website where they could find out about this $250?
Yes, I think we can do all those things. After I meet with the Democracy Project people, assuming they're still doing what they had in the past, is where they would be in contact with every social studies teacher in the state, that we've come up with some brochures for them with the information, and that we also put stuff online and on the website and in Facebook, and that we encourage other people to get to do as much as we can. I don't assume many of us are experts on social media, but we can learn some things and we can do what we can to get it out. So like two phases. The first one is to contact the teachers to get it in their hands. $250, by the way, was the highest amount that the History Day Project was offering for any winner. So I think there's an attraction there. And then the second phase would be that we do whatever we think we need to do, and any feedback we get to help adjust this to it on the website, on Facebook and so forth, to make it easier on the students and make it easier for the teachers.
Yeah.
So I'll let you know when I meet with the results of my meeting with the Democracy Project folks.
Yeah.
Oh,
Any
So-
questions?
John, can you work with Tom to make those?
Sure. We've already talked about,
Oh, okay.
earlier in the summer, we talked about some of these things, and we can go through that. And we'll come back to you, or I anticipate us coming back to all of you for your ideas and for your criticisms and feedback and so forth. And
Excellent.
again, one other thing which is not connected to the initiative, but I am the Friends representative on the Secretary Slavin's advisory committee for the plantation. And we did not have a quarterly meeting. It was put off. So there's nothing to report there.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else for John? Let's move on then to brochure. Well, let's see. Elizabeth, since you're here, you handed out a membership report. Is there anything you want to add to it?
I don't believe so. I think all the data is kind of there, and this year it was the first year that we kind of used the rates, the new membership rates that we'd established the previous year, second year. So there wasn't really a lot of new things that happened with membership. We did kind of the same formula that we always have. But if anyone has any questions about the report that I provided, you can ask them now.
Tom?
Yeah, Tom.
I just to review, when these members, like the family membership and sponsor membership and all that, is that already multiplied by 2? In other words, is the members, is this souls 57 people, or
It's
or
50.
are there really more members than that because we didn't multiply by 2 for
So
parents and so
the
forth?
distinction is it's called signups. So the column, I called it signups because it's not members, because again, like we don't always know how many people are in a household. So an individual is definitely probably an individual, a family. I don't know how many people are in that family, what they consider family. So that's why I call that column signups. So there are definitely more than 57 members, but there are 57 paid memberships, I guess would be the distinction.
Okay, that's good. So it's a lot more encouraging than at first glance.
Yeah. So our mailing list is it's about 150, maybe a little more on it, but that includes, it goes to 2 people sometimes. So yeah, there's definitely more than 57 members. It's just 57 paid memberships. So it's kind of an important distinction.
Right. And we lost 16. Is there any effort to try to, recover some of those, or?
I don't actually consider them lost yet, because we're not at the end of the calendar year. A lot of people do their annual charitable giving at the end of the year. Some people do at the beginning. Everybody has a different giving cycle. It makes it challenging to manage, but because it's confusing, since we send a mailing out once a year, we don't send it out every month, because honestly, that would be really hard. That'd be very hard to manage. So yeah, I think we can look at it and see who hasn't given. And if they're a traditional person, then we might reach out to them again. But a lot of people do wait until the end of the year. So if you bug them again, sometimes that's perceived as a little naggy. But then I know that some people don't always remember if they have given either. So it's kind of it's something that we could look at, but I don't consider them lost yet.
So in other words, if there are any derelict board members, we could rely on you for a friendly reminder.
Sure, yeah, I can do that. Let me get my pen and add my to-do list. I'll check for board members.
In other words, I'm not sure if I've paid up or not.
Okay. Yeah, and see, that's the thing. That's why it. I know that I'm very old school about this. I usually I usually pay by check so that I can go back into my check register just to see the last time I gave to organizations. But yeah, so I will check all of the status of the board members and let everyone know what your status is. If you have made a gift, does everyone want to know either way if they have or have not? Or I don't
Sure.
want to assume, I don't want to make an assumption for everyone, but okay. All right, I'll send everyone a giving status update.
Your mic is off, Ellen.
Thanks. I got that message. If someone pays through Square, we get an email confirming that, and I save all those emails. I've created a folder on our email site, so we can confirm there as well.
Yeah, and I have those tracked in my little tracking system that I have set up for our members. So, but it's good to do an audit of that at least once a year to make sure that nothing has been missed between the two. So, yeah.
Okay. Elizabeth, did you want to share anything with us on the brochure?
The only thing that I think I would want to share is just the reminder that we did print a very small, what I'd consider a small run of the brochure. We only did a couple hundred printings because we had discussed updating I can't remember, it's not going to be the mission statement. I think we discussed updating the objective of the Friends, and the discussion became a little prolonged, and then we realized that we couldn't really come to a resolution, and that was holding up the sending out of the member letter renewals. So we decided to just go with the brochure as it was, do a small printing, and then we could update once we had agreed on a new objective. So I don't think that anything has changed with that, but we will have to do another printing of the brochure and another update before the members are mailed in late winter, early spring. So.
Okay. Well, that kind of brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is mission evaluation, which has my name after it. And I know we kind of stopped. One of the things was our mission is directly tied to our not-for-profit status. And if we're going to change our mission or mission statement, that could affect our certificate of incorporation. We might have to go back and open a can of worms, really. And that would be my concern.
Is that, I've never heard of that before. Is that like a rule or something? Because I know that my nonprofit, we slightly tweaked our mission a couple of years ago during a strategic planning process. And I don't remember that being part of the discussion. Is that like a legal thing, or is that just
Well, my impression is, and I'll check into this. I'll make it my business to find out. But if you have to, when you make your application for your not-for-profit status, you have to have a mission statement that goes with that. And I don't know that after that you can just change it without some process you go through.
Rodney, I can ask the people that were part of the discussion on our mission change. It was very slight. It was not really it was more of a technicality that we changed. I can ask though and see if there are any other ramifications. I don't know that I don't know that it will answer the question, but I'll just ask.
Okay.
Let me ask a question about that. How restrictive is this language? Because if we're talking about promoting John Dickinson, promoting the mansion, which I assume is part of it, which I think I read before, is just simply expand the definition of education or what have you, or promotion. What more do we want to have? What else would we want to add?
I mean, my memory is that the goal was to update the mission statement to, I guess, be more inclusive. I'm sorry, you guys having trouble hearing me?
No,
Okay. To be more inclusive and to recognize the role that enslaved people played on the plantation, rather than solely being focused on John Dickinson, the man. So I think it was more about broadening the message rather than changing the mission statement per se.
Rodney, if I may for just a second, as far as legality, in my experience, changing your mission statement shouldn't impact your nonprofit status unless you're changing it so radically the organization is basically completely different. I think what you may be thinking of is your incorporation paperwork with the Division of Corporations, which is when you make a bylaws change, then you have to file that with the Division of Corporations. It shouldn't affect your nonprofit status again, unless you're making such a radical change that it completely changes the organization. If your mission is incorporated in your bylaws as filed with the Division of Corporations, then yes, you would have to do that, but that's more just filing that with them and paying them their fee. Because I was part of an organization that did that. But it shouldn't affect anything with the IRS.
Well, I think we should look into it, just so that we don't get ourselves in trouble. I just went through this in the last year and a half with another organization that I belong to. And we had to be very careful what we did and what we didn't do. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same plane here. I mean, I'm not arguing against doing it. What I'm just saying is, let's make sure we know what we're talking about.
All right, I'll put that down as an action item,
Please,
Rodney. Okay.
please. Is there any other discussion about that? If not, we will move on to new business. I think the kind of elephant in the room is this December holiday party that we always that we have had. We did not have it last year because of COVID, obviously, and it's getting harder now to have it. You know, if you've never attended it, it's what I would call an intimate afternoon in the mansion with great food and drink and fellowship, and it's also intent is to, as a fundraiser, to bring people in and raise some money. If we are to do it now, according to we have to abide by the state rules, of course. So we would have to be wearing masks, which is kind of hard to do in a cocktail party. It's one thing to sit down at a table at a dining and take the mask off to eat, but if we're going to be walking around drinking and talking, that's a very different challenge if we're supposed to be wearing masks. And I believe the number of people in the building might be limited also. So Ellen sent a memo that I hope you all had an opportunity to read, that kind of identified the considerations.
Yeah, actually, it was Eunice that
Eunice, oh, thank
developed
you.
that.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, thank you. Yes, it was Eunice. Thank you, Eunice. So, I would just open it for discussion. The question I would ask is should we even consider doing it this year?
I think with all the variables about COVID, I think it's probably time to just put it on the back burner.
I received feedback from Susan Eliason that she is very uncomfortable at this point with an in-person meeting, but she thought perhaps we could have a wreath laying at the burial ground attended just by the board members. That's something we could probably film and post on YouTube to send out to the members if we did something a more solemn occasion. That was her suggestion.
Okay. Any further comments or thoughts on that?
I think that's a nice idea. I like that. I think that it's a solemn time for the mansion. It's a difficult time to be doing events. I'm personally doing a 300-person event for my work in early October, and the COVID considerations, it has crunched timelines and it has added many complicating factors that are very difficult to handle and requires additional layers of, I would say, not security, but security that we haven't had to consider before. So I would advocate for not doing it, especially knowing that we can't predict what's going to happen in a couple of months, and it's very challenging to do any sort of event related thing right now. So unless there is a very compelling reason to do it, I would advocate that we just decide now not to do it.
So if we don't do it, then would we probably should send holiday cards at least?
Yeah, so we did a holiday card last year. I designed one last year and sent it out, and I think that's just nice to do anyway. So I think that we should definitely consider something like that again. I mean, you can always do a virtual happy hour if people think that there is a feeling that people want to get together. I think that you could always do that. Tom?
I'm just, the legality of it all. What if you said, well, you come to the party if you've been vaccinated? And if you are vaccinated, do you have to still wear a mask? I'm not sure what the ruling is on that. Obviously, if you do have to wear a mask, then clearly that's not going to work, a cocktail party. But
Let me just say, I'm going.
They've been vaccinated. Can it be done without?
No, I think no. I'm going through this with another organization right now. And what we're finding out is that the fact that you're vaccinated doesn't mean that you can't be carrying the Delta without any symptoms. We're seeing more and more of that. So it's really not whether or not you're vaccinated is not the guarantee. And the best thing that I'm hearing, and that's doing some talking to other organizations, that the best thing you could do right now is have masks and not be so concerned about the vaccinations. And so, and we can't have masks and have the kind of event that we want. And after all, we're trying to encourage as many people as we can to attend and participate and, write a check and raise some money. That's part of it also. So I would agree with Elizabeth that it's too cumbersome. And I think we have a lot of people who just wouldn't come anyway because of the whole circumstances. Yeah, Elizabeth?
I think the other part of this too is that you got to think about 2 weeks after the party. If we have a mini outbreak of like people catching COVID 2 weeks after the party, we're not going to feel good as a board knowing that we potentially made people sick, and that, kind of the snowball effect of that. And there's a big burden on event planners right now in like making sure that your events are safe. And so I would say, unless there's this very compelling reason to get together, and since the holiday party is in December, I don't think doing it outside is something that we could reasonably do comfortably. I just think that we should decide not to do it. I think the timing is not good for the weather. The timing is probably not good for COVID. If we're going to follow the 2020 trends at all, where it kind of spikes when you're indoors, who knows? I mean, it's hard to predict the future, but I think we should be very conservative this year and try to celebrate and think about ways that we can celebrate differently.
I agree.
Answer.
Yeah.
Would you like to turn that into a motion that that we do not have the party this year, but we send cards instead.
You make the motion.
Sure, at the very least, I think at the very least we can do that. I think that like maybe there's other things that we can do as well, but yeah, I think we should definitely, yes, I make that motion.
Second.
Second, thank you, Eunice. Any more discussion? Then all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? I think it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, so we are going to send some cards to our members. And the last thing really on the item is future meetings.
All right, we do have a meeting scheduled Tuesday, January 11th. Probably will be Zoom again, I suppose, unless something changes within the next couple months. And then the meeting after that would be Wednesday, April 13th. Because there is possibly Make a Splash or some event at the mansion on that Tuesday.
Okay,
Hopefully, the April meeting can be in person.
yeah, we hope so.
But they're always at 10 o'clock, right?
Yes.
So far, yeah. Okay, well, thank you all very much. Is there anything else that anyone wants to bring up at this time? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Everybody
Second.
second, thank you. All in favor, thank you very much.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Aye.